Hello everyone, my name is Ben Goldsmith from Goldsmith Property, and I want to talk through with you today my Serviced Accommodation Deal Analyser. This is something that we developed over a period of time when I first started looking at doing serviced accommodation units about a couple of years ago now. We realised that the costs involved in serviced accommodation were quite different from normal rental property, single lets or HMOs. So we wanted to have a quick way to analyse serviced accommodation units to see if they were good deals or bad deals. So we started out by an initial sort of deal analyzer where we listed all the costs, and we sort of developed this over time, and we really I think we've honed it and perfected it now, and it's a really powerful tool for us in analysing potential serviced accommodation deals. So let me start by talking you through the spreadsheet. So there's a few different areas of the spreadsheet. We've got the initial analyzer, which is on the left hand side here, which outlines all the different costs involved in having a serviced accommodation unit, and it looks at the revenues and associated with different levels of occupancy, and how the costs might change through those different levels of occupancy as well. So you can see with each level of occupancy what the profit on the unit would be. And then on the right hand side here is, once we've got a clear idea of those costs, we look at projecting profit over a whole 12-month period, because unlike normal rental property, serviced accommodation is very, very seasonal. You might get periods where you're at 100% occupancy over the summer, for example, and then in the winter, when you come to autumn and winter, things will slow down. You'll get lower levels of occupancy. You might have peaks around certain things like maybe Valentine's Day or Christmas, New Year, but you might find that generally November, December, January, February are quite quiet periods. So what you want to know is not how this property is going to do on the best of months, but how it's going to do over a period of time by different levels of occupancy and potentially different room rates at different times of year through those different months, and find out overall what your expected annual profit will be before tax and what your profit margin will be. So this spreadsheet does all of this, and it's for me, it's a really powerful tool in assessing serviced accommodation deals. So let's start by looking at the potential revenue on a serviced accommodation unit. So this is based upon figures I was looking at in some areas of Bristol recently. And I was looking at room unit rates of about £100 a night for a 1/2 bedroom flat. Obviously, the size of your serviced accommodation unit and the location and the sort of general market will dictate this. But if you've got a larger property, you could be looking at higher rates than that. If you've got a small, like a studio, then it might be lower than that. If it's central to your city, then it might be higher. If it's a bit further out, then the room rate might be lower. So there's lots of things which will feed into your estimate of what the room rate will be. We estimated about £100 a night for a 1 or 2 bedroom flat. Now this analyzer lets you analyze a property if it has more than one unit. So maybe you're looking at a house with 2 one-bed flats in it, or maybe you're looking at a block of 4 flats, for example, and it recalculates all your costs and incomes based upon how many rooms or units you have. I mean, we'll do a simple analysis here and just look at one bedroom or 2 bedroom flat. And you can see that we can calculate the revenue based upon different levels of occupancy. So at 50%, 60%, 70%, all the way up to 100%, and you can see how the revenue changes based upon that level of occupancy. So that's simple enough. Now, the bottom bit is all of the costs that are associated with running that serviced accommodation unit. So the first thing I do is we make an estimate for how many bookings we're going to get over a month-long period, and this will vary quite a lot depending on what kind of unit you have, where it is. But obviously, the more people, the more shorter stays you have, the more cost you have, because at the end of every stay, you have to change the bedding, you have to clean the property. So this does have an impact on your costs. And if it might be that in some places you're looking at one night stays on average, that would be quite unusual, I would say. We've found on the units we have that typically we're looking at a 3-night stay. So you're going to get 5 bookings each month. And what this does then is it calculates the laundry costs based upon that, and I'll come down to that in a second. Now, one of the big costs that you get with serviced accommodation, which you don't have with normal rental property, is the booking fees. Now, different websites that advertise your property charge different commissions. Booking.com is one of the more expensive at about 16%, but Expedia, Top Rooms, Trivago, they all charge different levels of booking fees, normally between about 12 and 16%. Airbnb, I think, is a little bit cheaper, although we don't use Airbnb that much. But what we've found is that the majority of our bookings come from Booking.com, which is 16% commission, but not all of them. Some come from other websites which are lower commission rates, and some of them come direct. And of course, with direct bookings, you get no commission that you have to pay to anyone. Obviously, the end goal is to get repeat customers where you can drive down these average booking fees until you're getting most of your bookings direct, so that this becomes smaller and smaller. But at first, you'll have to expect that, our average is about 12%. Maybe if you're just starting out, you might be averaging 13, 14, 15%. So you need to put that into your figures and calculate that. And obviously, you can easily change. You can change the percentage quite easily by changing this percentage, this fraction here. Now, through our booking management system, we're able to take card payments directly, so we don't deal in cash. We require payments in advance for all of our rooms and units, and the online merchant that we use, which is WorldPay, takes a fee based upon what kind of card is used. So again, this is an estimate. Some of the cards that are used, like MasterCard, we pay 2.5% commission fees on those transactions. Other ones are a bit less than this. We're averaging about 1.5%, and again, that's something. It's a fair average to take to start with, but as your business develops, you'll have to revise, these kinds of fees just to see what's happening in your business. Now, VAT. Once your serviced accommodation business reaches a certain revenue, you're required to register it for VAT. We registered under a flat rate scheme because we're over the 90,000 threshold for VAT. So we're on the flat rate scheme, and we just pay 10.5% VAT on revenues. We're not able under that flat rate scheme to claim back any VAT on expenditures, but that certainly works out better for us in the long run. So if you are paying VAT, obviously you need to calculate that here. You also need to make allowances for gas, electricity, water, council tax, internet, and TV license, of course. Now, I talked about laundry before. We have a calculation here which determines how much we think the cleaning and the laundry will be. The cleaning, if you look at the formula here, is B9, which is the number of bookings in a month, multiplied by 10, which is the hourly rate for a cleaner, and multiplied by 2, which is what I would expect, the number of hours I would expect it would take a cleaner to clean a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment. If you've got efficient cleaners, it might take less than that. If you're paying a different rate for your cleaners, then you'll obviously have to amend that, but this is probably a fair estimate, I would say. And obviously that changes with the number of bookings you're getting at different levels of occupancy. The same for laundry. We estimate, for a 1 or 2 bed flat, you're probably going to pay about £20 to drop the laundry off, have it laundered, ironed, and made ready for you. And again, the laundry costs go up depending on the number of bookings you get each month. You may or may not have some direct advertising and marketing costs. More likely, you'll just be relying on the advertising of the platforms that you're putting your serviced accommodation units on. So, for example, Booking.com spend millions and millions on marketing, and you leverage that marketing by going on the website and being one of their partners. The same for Top Rooms and Trivago and Expedia. So it may well be that you have no advertising and marketing costs. Again, call answering, if you've just got 1 or 2 units, it may be that you're taking all of your calls directly, so there will be no call answering charges that you incur. We have quite a few units, so we actually use a call answering service, and obviously we incur costs for that. I sort of briefly mentioned it before. We use a channel manager which puts our advert for our serviced accommodation units on lots of different websites, like Booking.com, like Trivago, like Expedia, like Top Rooms, and there's a fee, a monthly fee for having that. And again, that varies depending on the transactions that go through. But we're looking on average with our booking manager of paying about £40 a month. We make an allowance for maintenance. Again, this will depend on how big the property is. For a small property, 1 or 2 bed, you might want to allocate £50 a month in maintenance. Again, it depends how good the property is, what sort of state it's in, how recently it's been renovated or refurbished. And then finally, the final cost that you need to allocate is if there's a mortgage on the property, or if you're doing rent-to-rent, a payment to the owner of the property. So you can see that with these figures here, at a 50% occupancy, we're looking at profit before tax of £257, and obviously the profit goes up and goes up to £1,200 a month if you're looking at 100% occupancy, which, in reality, you're probably rarely going to achieve 100% occupancy unless you get a booking for a long period of time, which just blocks it out for a month or two. You might, we try and target between 60 and 80% occupancy rates in general. And what this spreadsheet also allows me to do is I want to know what occupancy level I'm going to break even on this property. So I can play around with this. I can say, well, what about 35%? Okay, so we're just about losing money at 35%. So that means probably, at, let's say, 37, we might just break even. So there you go. So it's important to know what your break-even point is for the property. And I typically want the break-even point to be as close to 35% as possible. 40% I guess would be okay. If it was 50%, let's say we're only getting £80, oops, that was wrong, wasn't it? If we were only getting £80 nightly rate for this, and we're just about making profit on 50%, I think that's a bit marginal, to be honest with you. But that's just my criteria. Everyone's going to be different. So this part of the tool is great for working out what your profit will be at different levels of occupancy. Let's change this back to 100. Now, this right-hand side recognises that at different times of the year, January through to December, you're going to get different levels of occupancy, and maybe you'll even have different room rates. Maybe you will be at £80 here and £80 here, and maybe when you come back down to November, again you're going to have lower rates. So what this allows you to do is play around with these projections by the month, and obviously you can see that I've got 45% occupancy January, February, running up to 60% in March, and then slowly going up to 80% and 90% in August, and then coming back down to 60% for December, and 50% in November. And obviously it recalculates all of these costs, and you can see that we can see what the profit is going to be by the month. And importantly, given these estimates of room rates and occupancy, you can see the profit on this for the year would be £3,000. And you may look at that and say, well, £3,000 over 12 months, that's not actually that much, and that's probably not worth it. If you were looking at higher rates, then maybe that would put a different complexion on it. If you're getting £100 a night throughout the whole year, then you're looking at a very different, twice as much profit, £6,600 profit. So you can play around with it and see what you think the actual condition is in terms of room rates and occupancy rates through the year, and it shows you exactly what you can expect to make on the property as a result of that. And I found it to be a really powerful tool in analysing serviced accommodation units. So yeah, there you have it. I think it's I spent a lot of time working on this, and I think it's a great tool. And yeah, if you've got any questions about this or about serviced accommodation in general, I'm happy to answer them. So please do drop me a line, contact me on ben@goldsmith-property.co.uk. If you want to see a bit more about what we do, then do have a look at our website. We are on www.goldsmith-property.co.uk. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you. So thanks very much for your time. I hope that was useful. And hopefully we'll talk again soon. Thanks.